The leaves are just beginning to fall, and college football's late-season dramatics are on the rise as we highlight Virginia Tech's visit to Louisville for Week 10 of action in the regular season and the Hokies' 5th contest in the ACC. Hello, everybody. Welcome into this edition of the 3304 Kickoff Show. I'm Kyle Marshak. Alongside me, Nick Brown and Nels Williams. And guys, it's the Hokies paying a visit to a 7-1, number 15 ranked Louisville squad. A big contest. Nick, let's start with this. I mean, the conference play has been awfully kind to a Virginia Tech squad that's 4-4 in the regular season. Yeah,
Virginia Tech had a pretty lucky draw in this this weird ACC scheduling format that they're only going to have for 1 year. They played Florida State, that's their one loss, but they've played Pittsburgh, Wake Forest, and Syracuse, and all three are kind of bottoming out here in the ACC as all the records start to settle down. And that's how Virginia Tech has picked off some wins. Now, they're dominating those games. They're not just squeaking by these teams and you're like, oh, they're just beating up on, or they're just beating these small teams. No, they're beating these guys pretty handily, and they look really impressive. A true great turnaround in Blacksburg by Brent Pry and company. Yeah, a completely evolved scheme on offense by Tyler Bowen for Virginia Tech. We'll talk more about that later. Speaking of offense, though, I mean, VT picked 11th in the preseason poll, Louisville 8th. Both these teams' offenses are why they're in a contest for second place in the ACC now. If both teams are in the driver's seat to just continue to win, they could end up in an ACC championship. So my question for you, Nels, what's the deal with Louisville's offense? Why are they ranked? Why are they undefeated at home?
Well, the reason why Louisville is number 15 in the nation is because of Jawar Jordan. And all you have to do is just look at one stat line, 7.5 yards per carry.
Yep.
Averaging 7.5 yards per carry. That's just unheard of in Power 5 these days, right? He's probably one of the top 5, if not top 3 running backs in the country. Not only that, they have a really good run defense. Now, you wanted to talk offense, but defensively, they're holding their opponents to 3 yards per carry. That's top 15 in the nation. So running the ball and stopping the run is why Louisville is ranked so high and why they're currently second in the ACC, Kyle.
Absolutely. Well, VT's offense, as I mentioned, has a completely different feel to it. So we think our reporter Aiden Butler has a story on it. He believes that Virginia Tech has to do just one thing on offense to get this win against Louisville. What do you got for us, Aiden?
Virginia Tech football in its heyday was known for multiple facets of stellar play, an elite defense, game-changing special teams, and a run game that could give defenses a long day. Back then, it was a smash-mouth ground-and-pound style out of the heavy I formation. Now Tech runs a style of offense that hinges on a strong run game to the outside, opening up the field to efficiently pass the ball, but it all starts with being consistent on the ground. The Hokies struggled to establish the run in their first few contests this season, but the offense seems to have turned a corner thanks to a running back stable headed by North Carolina A&T transfer Bashaw Tootin and Malachi Thomas coming back from injury, as well as some scheme adjustments from offensive coordinator Tyler Bowen. Tootin proved himself a capable runner before arriving in Blacksburg after racking up over 1,000 yards and 13 touchdowns with the Aggies last season. So far this year with Tech, he's 30 yards shy of hitting 500 and also proven to be a threat catching out of the backfield. Meanwhile, Malachi Thomas has seen his workload gradually increase throughout the season after missing 8 games with an injury last year. This newfound pep in the step of the offense has also aided a struggling offensive line unit. Last week, Tootin registered his second 100-yard performance for Tech this year, and Malachi Thomas didn't miss a beat when his number was called, notching a season high in carries and a season high in yards with 87 and even threw a touchdown. All told, the team racked up north of 300 yards on the ground, their best output so far this season. When the ground game is clicking, it has allowed more room to operate for quarterback Kyron Drones. If the Hokies intend to knock off the 15th-ranked Cardinals and take sole possession of second place in the ACC, it's going to have to start with the run game, as they'll be going up against a Louisville defense that is 9th in the country in stopping the run, giving up only 3 yards per carry and 90 yards per game. Tootin and Thomas both possess a dangerous mixture of speed and power. The Hokies will need at least one or both of them to have a productive day if they want to knock off the 15th-ranked Louisville Cardinals. Kyle?
Thanks, Aiden. And guys, he has a big point that this game could very well come down to the running game alone. Virginia Tech, 318 rushing yards against Cuse last week in a 38-10 victory over the Orange. Meanwhile, 2 turnovers forced by Louisville's defense, a top 10 run-stopping defense in the country. 23-0 was the score last week versus Duke. So my question for you guys, what about Jack Plummer, the QB, 5th year for Louisville? Does it come down to him? Is he going to be a lot of trouble for Virginia Tech's top secondary in the ACC?
I don't think Louisville asks him to do too much. He had over 3,000 passing yards last year in his one season at Cal. Came over with his former head coach at Purdue, Jeff Brom. And they haven't asked him to do much, and, well, it helps when you have number 25 in the backfield who can run, like you said, for 7.5 yards per carry. So I don't think he's going to need to do much, just manage the game. He does get, when he gets pressured, he does tend to throw a couple of picks. So if he does that, then I'm going to start leaning towards Virginia Tech. But I don't think he's going to need to throw the ball at all because Virginia Tech has faced, yes, in their 3 wins, they've dominated the run game on defense, but they haven't faced any real running attack or threat in those 3 wins. Jawar Jordan, he's a real deal. He's a real threat. So I think they're just going to rely on him all day.
Yeah, all Jack Plummer really needs to do is just hand the ball off left, hand the ball off right. And when he needs to, he needs to make that throw. You mentioned it. He does throw a little picks if he feels the pressure. He holds onto the ball a little bit too much. Jeff Brom has talked about that as well. But in terms of what the game plan is for Louisville on Saturday, all he needs to do is just left, right, or perhaps a toss left or a toss right. We could do that as well. So I don't really think Jack Plummer's going to have his hands full with Virginia Tech. Obviously, he's going to be dealing with that front 7, and Virginia Tech has that lethal secondary. But I don't think they're going to use him in the passing game as much often unless they absolutely need to, Kyle.
Yeah, it's interesting. In the past couple of years, how these offenses have evolved. Obviously, Virginia Tech's had their up and downs, but Louisville in previous seasons has been known for having 2-headed monsters in the running back room. But after that last game, it kind of feels like Virginia Tech has that with Tootin and then Thomas helping out in the backfield. But back to the offense, right, for Louisville in particular, it makes you wonder, what does this game come down to? Is it the running game? Is it just really Jeff Brom's tempo offense overall? What do you guys think?
Well, like Nick said about Virginia Tech's run defense, they did hold Syracuse to 0 yards, right? But they haven't really faced any competition like Louisville's running offense since Florida State and Benson, right? So for Virginia Tech, what they have to do is just simply stop the run, right? You have to have the performance and you have to show, especially on the linebacker side, what you've been capable of doing in stopping Jawar Jordan, which we've said it a lot already. 7.5 yards per carry is insane. All right, let's be real. That is insane. So I think in terms of what the offense is going to look like, it's going to go run, run, pass, or even just run, run, run. Louisville, though, has to respect what Virginia Tech's run defense has been capable of doing over these past few games, right?
Yeah.
But they also have tape of it. They also understand where the weak side is on both sides. So, again, Jack Plummer's not going to really have his hands full. How this offense is going to shape up is either run, run, pass, or run, 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 really, I think, on Saturday.
I think the only way Purdue would get themselves in trouble is if they over-scheme themselves, if they overthink it. If they look at these numbers and these 3 wins for Virginia Tech in the ACC, they might get scared of the run game. But I think Jeff Brom's too good of a coach. He's going to look more at that Florida State tape, the Marshall tape, the Rutgers tape, where Virginia Tech allowed running backs to run for over 200 freaking rushing yards. That's a lot of yards. And he's going to look at that and be like, yes, we have one of the best running backs in the country. We're just going to send him right up the middle. Like you said, left, right. That's all we're going to see today.
Yeah. Well, you guys have all the good analysis, but let's learn more about the Vills offense with our very own Tucker Terry.
Looking to the past, Louisville has largely struggled against the Hokies, winning just twice in the last 8 times these football teams have faced each other. In fact, the last time the Cardinals beat the Hokies was all the way back in 1992, when Louisville pulled off a 21-17 victory on their home field. However, there is reason to believe that this game might be different, as the Cardinals are off to their best start since Lamar Jackson's Heisman-winning season in 2016, as they're currently 7-1. Over the last month, Louisville took down 12th-ranked Notre Dame, were upset by the Pittsburgh Panthers, but then recovered for a massive shutout victory over the Duke Blue Devils. So, while the Cards can fall victim to the occasional off game, they have proven themselves to be one of the best teams in the country by beating some of the best teams in the country. The 15th-ranked Cardinals enter the game as 10-point favorites on their home turf, largely due to both their run offense and run defense. Their potent run game is led by star 5th-year running back Jawar Jordan, who is one of the best backs in all of college football. He's already just 2 yards shy of 1,000 total yards, while averaging an unbelievable 7.5 yards per rush, by far the best of any player in the ACC. But don't let the Cardinals' superb run offense distract you from their stifling run defense, which ranks 2nd in the ACC, holding opponents to a mere 91 rushing yards per game. This defense is led by junior linebacker TJ Quinn, who paces the squad with 62 tackles on the season. However, their smothering run defense will no doubt be tested by a Virginia Tech squad that's fresh off of a 318-yard performance on the ground versus the Syracuse Orange. Obviously, something has to give. Whether that will be Louisville's elite run defense or the Hokies' surging rush offense, we'll have to wait and see. But whether or not the Cards will be able to hold off Tech's ground attack, will have massive implications on who will get the win and ultimately put themselves in the position to reach the ACC championship game in less than a month.
Thank you very much, Mr. Terry. And as one famous man once said, back up, Terry. We got to talk about that offense. Jack Plummer, Jawar Jordan, with passing and rushing yards per game, respectively, about 400 when you combine the two every contest, right? So my main question for you, Nick, has Virginia Tech faced an offense like this season?
Yes and no. I think Florida State offense overall is better, but of course they have one of the best quarterbacks in the country in Jordan Travis and phenomenal wide receivers. Louisville, they're going to ground and pound. They don't have as great as quarterback play, not nearly as good with Jack Plummer, but Jawar Jordan is probably a top 5 running back in the country. He is that dude, and if Virginia Tech can stop him, I think that they can have the advantage, but that's a big ask when you're going up against one of the best running backs.
For sure. Nels, for you, man, I mean, what has Virginia Tech's offense done to evolve? I mean, even in just the past 3 weeks.
Well, obviously it starts with quarterback, right? You have Kyron Drones, who over Grant Wells is more of a running quarterback, right? And when you can run and you have a running quarterback, you elevate your running backs in Malachi Thomas and Bayshal Tootin, right? Virginia Tech's biggest problem at the beginning of the year was their running game. They couldn't get anything going. They're averaging under 2 yards per carry per game, right? Now that you have Kyron Drones, who's able to kind of throw in a mix of or an element of surprise in as to what they're going to do offensively, he's really helped step up their game, right? We saw last game against Syracuse, Malachi Thomas threw a touchdown, right? If you told Virginia Tech fans or Virginia Tech's offense in general, they would have a running back tossing a touchdown in the red zone, and week 2 or week 3, you would have had them losing their minds, right? This offensive coordinator Tyler Bowen, has completely restructured around Kyron Drones, and it simply helped Virginia Tech in every way possible. They're running pitches and left and right. They're running counters. They're doing things, and they're being creative in a way that in the beginning of the season just would not have been thought of possible, Kyle.
No, yeah, and I can't help but agree. And you mentioned Tyler Bowen, offensive coordinator, a guy whose role was questioned throughout last season, not even being the QB coach. Now this year, I mean, man, he's done a lot to change that offense. And I think the best part about it, too, I don't know if you guys noticed at Wednesday practices, you'll see it tomorrow, Tyler Bowen's beardless now, and it's for good reason. I saw in the press conference it's because of a bet he lost with the O-line on some sort of rushing yard count, so a really good reason to go beardless. You guys noticed that with Tyler Bowen?
Yeah, and he shaved it into a Fu Manchu. He left it, and
that's
then
right.
and then apparently he shaved that in
Now that's
6
gone.
hours.
Yeah.
Because apparently that was the bet, that he was going to shave it to a Fu Manchu, and then he shaved it before media got to see it. So that's a darn shame that we didn't get that beautiful picture.
That's right. Prime mentioned it. He said he had a Fu Manchu for a moment, so we got to miss that part, unfortunately. All right, my last question for you guys in this segment real quick. You guys want to guess the last time Louisville and Virginia Tech faced each other in a full-capacity stadium? So forget 2020.
I'm going 2002.
Okay. Nels?
I'm going to go 04.
All right, we got a good nugget on that. I'll leave you guys in suspense because Taylor Brettel has more on that. What do you got, Taylor?
Virginia Tech and Louisville. 2 newer teams to the ACC who don't have too much history with one another. Their last face-off was October 31st, 2020, Halloween. Not only were people wearing masks to be in that spooky spirit, but because we were facing the heart of the pandemic. With full attendance not being allowed, you have to go all the way back to January 2nd, 2006 to see the last time these 2 teams played, with all fans being allowed to attend. I was 2 years old at the time. That game didn't just have more attendance than 2020's of 11,000, but it was sold out with over 67,000 fans in attendance. Why? That's because it was the Gator Bowl, one of the oldest and most iconic bowls in college football. Coming into the game, the narrative of the bowl was Marcus Vick, brother to Michael, hopes to carry on that Virginia Tech legacy of winning big games for the Hokies. The Cardinals, on the other hand, did not like that narrative and got right to it. They started off the game with a boom and took a 14-3 lead in the first quarter, with quarterback Hunter Cantwell leading the way, throwing for both of those touchdowns. But then the defenses took storm, with the second and third quarter lacking offense and Louisville still holding on to a lead of 17-13. Kicking off the fourth, Louisville wasn't playing around anymore and got right to the scoring. It only took 2 plays, totaling for 58 yards for them to get a touchdown on the board. Their lead is now extended 24-13. The Hokies, though, must have been watching 1946 Broadway sensation Annie Get Your Gun on the sideline, because they trotted out onto the field and performed anything you can do, I can do better. Okay, not literally, but in response, they as well only needed 2 plays to score, but this time for 78 yards, the touchdown, and the 2-point conversion. The Cardinals' lead is now only 3. With 15 points being scored in these past 33 seconds, the players were more awake than ever and the crowd was getting rowdy. But who really wanted it more? The Cardinals got the ball back and fumbled 7 plays later, resulting in a Hokies touchdown right down the field to take a lead of 28-24. Louisville, then getting the ball back, only 4 plays later turned it over again, this time resulting in a pick 6 for the Hokies. They kept that 35-24 lead secure and were crowned Gator Bowl champions. Now today, Louisville is 13th in the country 17 years later, going in to face the Hokies. But this time, they are now the favorites. With these two teams tied for second in the ACC, it should be one heck of a game to kick off November.
Good stuff as always, Brettel. And guys, you know the deal. Final score predictions for this contest. It's going to be high scoring, low scoring. Nick, we'll start with you.
I'm going low scoring. I think it's going to be a quick game. I think both teams are going to stick to their guns and run the football, even though both defenses Virginia Tech's defense has improved and Louisville's defense is really good at stopping the run. So I think it's going to be low scoring. I'm going to go Louisville 24, Virginia Tech 14.
Okay.
I think the Cards cover.
Okay.
I'm the opposite. I think it's going to be more high scoring, honestly. I think that Levy's just going to break with this one. I think that dam is going to burst wide open in the fact that whenever you have two, run defenses like this, usually most of the time you get run all over, right? So I'm going to go Louisville 34, Virginia Tech 28, however. I think the Hokies keep it close. I think at one point they do lead, but at the same time, Brent Pry and Virginia Tech have not won on the road this season. They haven't proved themselves on the road, right? And I think Louisville's going to come out the same way that Florida State did and come up where they score in their first 2 possessions. Virginia Tech comes back a little bit, but at the end of the day, the Hokies are going to walk out of Kentucky in the loss column, Kyle.
To play devil's advocate, just to be fair, a Hokie Bird would probably beat a Cardinal in an actual fight. Just saying. All right, all jokes aside, let's talk about other ACC games of note. Obviously, a lot in the line with Louisville and VT. They're fighting for a spot in second place in the ACC. So what other games could affect those standings?
Well, UNC and Clemson and all the other usual suspects, Miami, kind of look dead in the water. I don't think anybody in the country, especially ACC fans, would have looked at this season and been like, yeah, that game on November 4th between Virginia Tech and Louisville, that's going to decide who goes to the ACC championship game.
Yeah, I mean, you really have to understand that the ACC is kind of imploding on itself right now. I mean, Miami couldn't get the win against Georgia Tech, right? UVA and Georgia Tech defeat UNC, right? I mean, heading into this week, there aren't as many implications for the ACC championship. You have UNC playing Campbell. You have Georgia Tech playing UVA, funnily enough. The game I have my eye on, though, is Miami versus NC State. NC State came off of a program-defining win, even though Clemson's not as good this year, at home against Clemson. Miami, they're still looking to prove it with Mario Cristobal, right? They still had that squeaker of a win over UVA last week. This week, there aren't as many implications. Obviously, you have Florida State playing Pitt, but unless something goes terribly wrong, right, Florida State's probably getting out on top. This game is arguably one of the biggest games of the year for the ACC in general. And whoever wins this game, whoever wins this, Louisville or Virginia Tech, is going to be playing Florida State in Charlotte come December, Kyle.
Yeah, for sure. So what's the plan for Louisville, guys? There's a Louisville Slugger Museum out there. I know our writer, co-editor-in-chief, and also a reporter in the studio, Carter Hill, really wants to go to that museum. I think there's a lot of fun to be had in Northern Kentucky, outside of football.
Yeah, really cool city. And what I really want to look at is the Kentucky Derby.
That's true.
That is true. I mean, I'm really looking forward to the Louisville Slugger Museum. I'm looking forward to just walking around. I had the pleasure of going to the Rutgers trip, and I know that there's a lot of fun to walk around Piscataway, New Jersey. But, I mean, Louisville's a little bit of a different beast, and fortunately, better weather than here in Blacksburg. It's going to be about sweatshirt and shorts weather. I'm really looking forward to that, Kyle. Most importantly, being able to not have to put on a coat when I step outside.
That's true. It's been brisk in the mountains so far, but should be a pretty hot contest in Northern Kentucky soon. So, all right, I think that about wraps up the show. So for Nick Brown and Nels Williams, all of our reporters, I think that's a good note to leave us on as the Battle of the Birds awaits us up in Northern Kentucky. Well, we're ready to pack up and head to the Ville. We thank you guys for hanging with us on this fine Friday afternoon in the Berg. And hey, don't forget to check out this week's editions of Got It Covered and the High Five. So again, for our reporters Taylor Brettel, Tucker Terry, Aiden Butler, and of course my panelists Nick Brown and Nels Williams here at the desk, I'm Kyle Marshak saying so long and see you next time on the 3304 Kickoff Show.